First thing I like to do is sand my piece of wood. Because this is construction lumber from Home Depot, it's not the best quality, but it just makes it a little bit easier to sand when it's in full length pieces than smaller pieces. Most importantly, it's good to square everything up before you start cutting, and then it was on to measuring. I measured everything out at once and then marked what each piece corresponded to. I'll leave a full cut list down in the description below. I started off by cutting all of the 90-degree cuts first. Before making my next cut, I marked the center of the board, and this is so that I can drill a hole that will allow the cable for the light fixture to move up and down or be adjustable. I just used a 1/2-inch drill bit here. I drilled a pilot hole first to help guide the 1/2-inch drill bit through, but I really didn't need that, and then I just made sure that the hole was cleaned up as best as possible. Here you can see the results, and it doesn't look too bad. It's a nice rounded edge there, and we'll just clean this up before assembling. The next hole was a little bit more tricky. This was a 45-degree drill that I had to do, and I'm not too sure if this is the best way to do this or not, but I did the same process. I pilot drilled first, then drilled through with a 1/2-inch drill bit. I did this twice, one for one light and then one for the other light. If you have a miter saw like me, never trust that the 45-degree markings on it or any markings on it are actually accurate. As you'll see here, I've got this new level gauge, and it's going to show that it's 43.9 degrees, so it's not quite 45. So I adjusted that and then made my cuts. It doesn't look like it turned out too bad. They're just as messy as the ones before, but we're going to give this a sand before assembly. Now all I have to do is cut the 45 on the other end, and then we are finished with all the cutting. A quick dry fit to make sure everything lined up, but you'll notice there are no holes for the light fixture to come through. So that's what we're going to tackle next. I marked the center of each board and then marked 1.5 inches in from the end, and this is where I drilled a pilot hole that would allow me to drill 1 3/8 inch hole with my spade bit. A spade bit is not the correct bit to be drilling a hole like this. It does not create a clean cut, and it can be quite vicious, as you'll see in a bit. If I have to drill a hole like this in the future, I will be using a Forstner bit, and I had to switch this board around because the tear out from this spade bit is awful, so I want to drill through from the other side, and then this is what happens when I met in the middle. The board just flew off. I was making 4 lights at the same time, 2 without roundovers and 2 with roundovers. I just used a 1/4 inch roundover bit, but the thing that was consistent with all 4 lights was the hole for the light fixtures were rounded over on all 4. Before moving on to a final sand, I marked everything up and drilled all the holes that are going to be holding the light together. Now it's time to stain, and the most important thing that I've found is to make sure you put your preconditioner on your wood before staining, or you end up with a blotchy finish. When using pre-stain conditioner, it's always important to read the label, as each brand might be slightly different, but I waited the appropriate time and wiped off any excess before staining. I had some stain left over from a previous project, so I just used that on here. So I forgot to drill my pocket holes. Mistakes happen, but I should have done this before staining. So all I've got here is the top half of my pocket hole jig. I measured 1.5 inches up from the bottom of my miter, and then I'm just going to drill 2 holes in each piece, and then we can get this assembled. Assembly did prove to be quite difficult to get these pocket holes in at the angle, but I used a clamp here to hold everything steady while I drove the screws in. I found this the best way to put them together, but I couldn't put it together the opposite way or I wouldn't be able to get the pocket hole screws in. Now comes the time where you need to feed your card through. It doesn't matter on the length. Depends on where you have a socket as well. You may not get a lot of movement from this. It's actually a really short card. Where we're going to put these, I think we'll get enough movement out of them. So I just like to pull that all the way through, like so, and line it up there. Like that. And then I can carefully attach this piece. Just to make sure my measurements are correct from the top, it should be about 3 inches. Once I'd confirmed that everything was where it was meant to be, I could just drive the 4 screws in on the back. I used the pocket hole drill bit to make a little step so that the screws were recessed ever so slightly, and I was using pocket hole screws anyway, so it all worked out just great. And here we have the finished light. It looks great. Now there are a couple of things that I don't like, just how dark that end grain is on that stain there, just above the light bulb. But other than that, it turned out and looks excellent. Here's another one that I did without the roundovers, and it's a natural stain, and I actually prefer this one over the grayer stain. Just a personal preference here, but next to our fireplace, they look great, and I'm really happy with how they turned out.